Today we're making cozy old-fashioned sour cream coffee cake. It has a ripple of brown sugar cinnamon in the middle and on top, little drizzle. It's easy, it's in a loaf pan. It's gonna be so shareable and I think you're gonna love it. So let's make it. A good coffee cake is actually really simple. I just think it takes a few elements and you're gonna see, it's just like baking anything else and you're gonna get such a good treat in the end. So to start, we wanna make what is gonna be a layer in the middle and a nice crackly top, and that's gonna be brown sugar and cinnamon. So I lightly packed my brown sugar to measure it. I'm gonna use the beater for one of my hand mixers because we're just gonna use this here in a minute anyway. And what I wanna do is just combine this and make sure it's really well combined. You know what, we're using our hands because brown sugar is clumpy. And this is going to act instantly as the flavor profile. It's the one you know, the one you love, and it's what really makes a good coffee cake a good coffee cake. So now we have some butter. It's at room temperature, meaning it's soft, it's pliable, and we're gonna add to it some sugar. Some white granulated sugar, and what we're gonna do is just beat those two together until they're creamed. And that doesn't just mean combined, but it actually means slightly lighter and fluffy. You can use a stand mixer. You can do it by hand, of course. I mean, more power to you. I'm just gonna do it with this until it's nice and light and fluffy. You can see it very much changes, and I always think the light and fluffy part of a recipe is actually really important. You're incorporating air. Look how you're aerating that sugar and butter together. That's really important. So always scrape the sides if you can during it. That's just gonna make sure everything incorporates easier. And now with that hand mixer running, I cracked the eggs so it's easier to do, but I'm gonna add them one at a time. And again, room temperature eggs, room temperature sour cream. This is all gonna help it incorporate more evenly into a room temperature batter. So we're gonna put one in, see how quickly and beautifully that's just incorporating. And then we can add the next one in. And then I wanna add in my vanilla. Now, this is when a batter, and yeah, I just measure my vanilla. I make it at home, homemade vanilla. It has so much good flavor and I don't care if extra goes in. But I think it's important to note, when we put all of the the wet ingredients in, we're just gonna finish here with the sour cream, which creates such a moist, beautiful cake. It could look curdled. That's very normal, and don't let that scare you because we don't have the dry ingredients in yet. So we're gonna put all this right in, we're gonna mix it in, then we add the dry ingredients, and that's really when everything comes together. You can see, I think it actually looks pretty, but it can look curdled. I think that always kind of depends on the time of year, the humidity, that can kind of change all the hydration. So now we have the dry ingredients, which is when this is gonna really come together. So we're gonna start with the flour. You always know, since I do measurements like this, I like to overfill with a scoop so we're not packing it in, and just quickly level it off. That's gonna make sure we have a nice, good measurement. And you know, that flour is really the essential part here because it's what's gonna bind everything. So we throw that in, some baking powder that gives it lift, and then of course some salt. I just mixed all those dry ingredients in. You wanna make sure your beaters can be cleaned off, and we can do that with our hand too a little bit. This is the best part now. So I always think it's important at the end to make sure you take your spatula, do a final turn, so any bits that aren't mixed in, even at the bottom, same if you're using a stand mixer, you wanna make sure those are evenly incorporated. So this is when we can put it all together, which is kind of my favorite part. So I have a standard loaf pan, and what I have is a parchment sling in it. That just means it's gonna be easier to pull out because we're making a loaf coffee cake, which I think is nicer for slicing. It's really, to me, nicer for serving. I do spray still the sides of the pan and that parchment a little bit just because I want it to release still very easily. So don't get scared of that. And I, just to make it easy for me, and so nothing's flopping around, I use little binder clips. And that's just how I attach my sling so it stays in place and nothing moves when I'm filling something or putting it into the oven. I just think it's nicer, and they're all metal, so you don't have to worry about that. Now what we're gonna do is just visually divide the batter in half. Don't be perfect here. Put half of it in, and we're gonna top it with half of our brown sugar mixture. Of course, I wanna make sure I spread it to an even layer. I'm finishing with the second half now of batter that I put on top of half the cinnamon mixture I sprinkled over, and I just layer it now. So here at the end, I'm finishing with that, kind of an even layer. And then I'm taking the final part or half of my brown sugar mixture and putting it on top. So it's gonna give us kind of a nice crackly top. It just really brings it together, and it drives home the flavor, which is super important. And yeah, it's a lot, but you want a lot, believe me. Think of it like a streusel, but without all the butter, because you really don't need it. And let it just kind of even out into an even layer. Now, this is kind of at the top, right? So this is when I remove my binder clips in this case. For some baking, brownies, and things, I keep them on. This is gonna grow, and the parchment paper now will stay in place. I just like that to kind of hold as I'm going. And now I can put this right into the oven, let it bake, then cool and glaze. The cake was taken out of the oven, obviously, when a skewer came out clean, and then cooled in the pan for quite a while because it's a nice thick cake. But look how beautiful it really is. To me, that is just perfect. And you can see that parchment sling. That's what made it come out so easily. And then we can just take this right out from underneath it. When you see it's sitting on a rack and parchment, we'll talk about that. We want to make a glaze for it. It's just ever so warm still, which is to me the perfect time to take a little bit of melted butter. We're going to start with that because we want this to have a nice kind of rich flavor. We need, of course, some vanilla. So put the vanilla in, and again, you know me, I like vanilla. And then some powdered sugar. And this is going to create just a really simple, quick glaze that's going to go over the top of it. So just mix that together till it's smooth. And there is not a right or wrong here. You just want to get it kind of all over in whatever pattern you want. Kind of grabs onto that sugar crust, but look at that. No one is going to turn down a piece of good coffee cake, right? And then we just slice it up. I think it's best when it's like a little warm. You don't have to, because obviously leftovers are going to be frozen. That's how I keep anything, is in an airtight container in the freezer. Let's just take a nice big slice from the end here. Look at that. Look at that beautiful ribbon in there. That's that brown sugar cinnamon layer we put in. I love how it looks. It's exactly what you want. A beautiful crumb, nice, moist and dense, which is what that beautiful sour cream is gonna do. It's nostalgic. It's exactly the flavor you want. And just a quintessential coffee cake. Now this is a loaf, it's a loaf cake, which I really like because you can slice them, store them easily. It's also just really nice because it goes really well with whatever you're gonna use it with. So if you are new to coffee cake, if you have a favorite coffee cake, I hope you try this one because you know how good coffee cake is and can be. That's the point of beautiful coffee cake. It brings people together. Maybe it's for breakfast, brunch, lunch. As we're going into the fall season, this can be a great gift. Or just as you're gonna have something together with friends, make this because it is so good. Your kids are gonna love it and you're gonna love it. So share the recipe around and the video so other people can see how easy and good coffee cake can be. You don't have to go to a bakery. You don't have to go to a coffee shop. You can make it at home and enjoy it every day. That's the point of this. Check my website, wyseguide.com, for this recipe that you can print off and all of my others. And until then, we're getting into cozy season and I hope you're going to enjoy it.